Breaking news just coming in, well, a day after Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard announced that Master Blaster Sachin Tendulkar will be awarded the Australian Order of Merit. An Australian independent MP has now come out and questioned that decision. Independent Member of Parliament Rob Oakeshott revealed that he was a big fan of Sachin Tendulkar and cricket, but he was not too pleased with Sachin getting the prestigious honour. Oakeshott is not too happy with the fact that the award is being used for diplomatic reasons. Oakeshott added that the award should be only awarded to Australians who are working for the community. The MP suggested that a separate award could be created to honour icons like Sachin Tendulkar. The Australian Prime Minister termed the honour to Sachin as a great privilege. All right, we'll get you the reaction of Australian Prime Minister in just a bit. But for now, let's turn our attention to the reactions that are coming in from the questions that have been raised by the Australian MP. Joining us now from the newsroom, our sports editor, Gaurav Gala. Gaurav, a massive uproar down under. It isn't just sports commentators, columnists, but now even an Australian MP who's come out in the open criticizing this move by the Australian government. But this isn't the first time that a player of a different nationality will be conferred with this honour.
That's right, and one of the reasons, Ruchika, why there is such a uproar in Australia as far as this particular honour is concerned, that a lot of Australians actually feel that it's not Monkeygate per se that they're against. It's the fact that they feel their Prime Minister Julia Gillard is using Sachin Tendulkar, using this award to Sachin Tendulkar for diplomatic gains, for economic gains. Of course, Australia looking at India for a lot of investment at this point in time, various deals in the pipeline, and the critics of the Australian Prime Minister at this point in time feel that she's using this award for Sachin Tendulkar for those economic gains, for those diplomatic gains. And I think that is really the overriding sentiment. I mean, I've been reading a lot of the newspapers down under this morning, and most of them actually criticize the Prime Minister on this very fact. Monkeygate, yes, the odd tweet here and there has referred to Monkeygate and what Sachin Tendulkar has done for Australia, whether he should get this award or not. But like you said, others in the past have. Other prominent cricketers, particularly from the West Indies, Sir Clive Lloyd, Gary Sobers, you've also got Brian Lara who's received this award. And as far as Sachin Tendulkar and his cricketing, exploits are concerned on the field, he's right up there with any of those three gentlemen. So in that regard, I think a lot of this criticism is very hollow from the Australians, but it's directed more at Julia Gillard rather than Sachin Tendulkar.
All right, so this, of course, directed at the Australian Prime Minister. But, God, this isn't the first time we have seen such a controversy emerging out of how exactly diplomatic ties and sporting ties, when they're clubbed together, it usually tends to generate this sort of controversy around it. We've seen that in the case of India-Pakistan diplomatic relation and cricketing ties. And now this time we're seeing it in case of Australia and India.
Look, Ruchika, every time you bring up the topic of cricket, every time somebody like Sachin Tendulkar is brought into any sort of discussion, if there is some sort of a controversy associated with it, if there is some sort of criticism associated with it, then yes, it is going to create headlines, not just here in India, but all over the cricketing world. And of course, Australia and India, it's a cricketing rivalry that possibly is only surpassed by India versus Pakistan. Even, I think, India and England is not a patch on the rivalry that one sees now between India and Australia.
All right, Gara, just stay with us. We're also joined on the phone line now by Rohit Revo. He's the editor of Indian Herald. He joins us on the phone line from Sydney, Australia. Rohit, just take us through the range of reactions that are now coming in. We have read several sports columnists, several other people who've written about how they do not think it's actually befitting of Sachin Tendulkar to be receiving this prestigious honour in Australia. Brings the reaction that's coming in the Australian media.
I think the reason why this thing is kicked off is primarily due to domestic reasons. Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister here, is under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure from the opposition, and people. One of the local MPs who support the government depends. He has criticized and he's criticized the government for awarding this medal to Sachin Tendulkar. But amongst the general public, there is a lot of love still for Sachin Tendulkar, but there is a section which is kind of picking this up, especially in the Twitter. And some sports columnists here, they've also gone overboard and said that Sachin Tendulkar possibly does not deserve it. But I think there are other reasons which are fueling this controversy, and not really people disliking Sachin. That's my take on this.
All right, Rohit, so you see a lot of domestic politics in this, really, the sort of criticism this decision of Australian Prime Minister is inviting. But at the same time, do take us through whether there's been any mention of that entire Monkey Gate episode and the role that Australian media has accused Sachin Tendulkar of playing during that time.
The reason people are saying that because he did not interfere, and he was a kind of an eyewitness for when the Harbhajan Singh episode happened. So people are questioning it. Especially it was also on the bit of the talkback radio in the morning where people were actually criticizing why Sachin Tendulkar has been given this award. So, primarily I think it's domestic reasons behind that, and there's also a lot of criticism, and there's in silent criticism of people, because there's actually people are allergic towards the nuclear option here. They cite what's happened in Japan, the signing of the uranium deal and giving uranium to India, that people fear about about the safety of nuclear reactors in India. So they are using this occasion and this episode as a sort of backup to criticize that and get her and drain her.
Well, now the reaction that's come from one of the independent MPs in Australia could actually spark a massive controversy here in India as well. Rohit Rai, well, thank you for joining us, editor of the Indian Herald, speaking to us from Sydney on the reactions, the outpour really against the Australian Prime Minister's decision, criticizing her decision to bestow the top honour on Sachin Tendulkar. Let's also get a reaction now from my colleague Maha Siddiqui, who joins us. Maha, how really is the MEA seeing these developments, this criticism that's coming in, considering Sachin Tendulkar is the pride of India? He's also an honourable MP of this country. The criticism now comes from one of the MPs in Australia.
Well, Ruchika, it will be a very tricky situation for India, and really to comment on anything related to this Order of Australia that has been bestowed on Sachin Tendulkar, because remember, this visit of Julia Gillard is very important for India and a very significant one, because after this, India will become the first country to receive uranium from Australia. 40% of the uranium really comes from Australia for the world, but so far Australia had refused to give India uranium because India is not a signatory to NPT, and this will be the first case when that will be coming to India. And so it's a very tricky situation to comment at this time on Sachin Tendulkar. As you know, the Prime Minister of Australia has already said that apart from India, Australia is a country where Sachin Tendulkar is hugely popular after India. So clearly she supports the idea, and she has taken even personal interest really to a far extent in getting India to get uranium from Australia. So this is her initiative, but of course criticism coming from her own country, because they feel that sports is now being used as a means of soft diplomacy, and the whole Monkey Gate issue, all that coming into play at this point in time. That's why there is so much resentment that we are seeing at this point from Australia with regards to this award for Sachin Tendulkar.
All right, but the question is whether this domestic politics that's playing out, the accusations that are being hurled at the Australian Prime Minister who made that announcement earlier in India today, is that really going to cast a shadow on this massive honour that's being bestowed on Sachin Tendulkar? Maha Siddiqui, thank you for joining us and getting us a reaction from the Ministry of External Affairs. So clearly cautious right now, but let's exactly take you through what the Australian Prime Minister had to say as she announced bestowing this top Australian honour on cricketing legend Sachin Tendulkar.
I'm also very pleased that we are going to confer on Sachin Tendulkar membership of the Order of Australia, an AM. This is a very special honour, very rarely awarded to someone who is not an Australian citizen or an Australian national.
All right, let's get some more reactions. We have the editor of The Age, Brian, now joins us from Australia on the phone line. Brian, just tell us exactly, is it just a section of media or commentators who are actually opposed to the idea of Australian Prime Minister bestowing this top honour, criticizing it on social networking sites, criticizing it in the media, or is it the general feeling in public at large?
Look, I don't know that the criticism is all that vociferous and all that sort of strongly held, to be honest. Sachin Tendulkar is held in great affection in Australia, as much for his performance as his I suppose, gentle and demeanour off the field. I think most Australians don't see this as a huge issue. I think sportsmen have previously been awarded this honour. cricketers, foreign cricketers have been awarded this before. So Australians do see this as an effort of soft diplomacy on the part of the Australian government, but I don't think it's riled people greatly. I don't think a majority of Australians are upset by this. Some people might be upset by it, but I don't think a huge number.
This, I've been reading online on various forums and on Twitter as well that quite a few people upset at the fact that somebody like Shane Warne, who's an Australian cricketing legend, hasn't yet gotten this award, and yet the Prime Minister's felt that Sachin Tendulkar should get it before him. What are your thoughts on Shane Warne not getting it, yet Sachin Tendulkar getting it?
Look, there are lots of reasons that go on behind why this award has been conferred and conferred now. And look, it's certainly fair to say that they're not all cricketing reasons. There is a political and a diplomatic aspect to this being awarded now. Look, the reasons why Shane Warne hasn't been awarded an AM, I suspect might have something to do with Shane Warne's behaviour off the field, perhaps. These are decisions that are taken behind closed doors. I don't see that as being a huge problem one way or the other.